Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are so glad you're joining us, whether you're in person in the Center for Teaching and Mentoring today or in the Zoom room. We're welcoming Helen Wilson back with us today from Instructure, the company that has Canvas, knows all things Canvas. And Helen's going to be talking in this session today about some course design considerations. I just want to shout out to some folks that we have from MTSU manning the chat. We've got Karen Hine and Hung Mean from MTSU Online and Lauren Neal from ITD. So as you have questions today, as Helen is talking, feel free to drop those in the chat and our MTSU folks will address those. Helen, you go ahead and take it away.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our first session here. And as Jennifer mentioned, we're going to take a look at some considerations and decisions you should make regarding your course design options. So in our session here, I'm going to show you a tool that is free and openly available to all. It's called the Course Evaluation Checklist, and it contains various sections and practices listed within those sections to have you consider as you start to build out your courses. I will share first off, just to manage those expectations, the checklist is very detailed. So the intent here is not to wag fingers at you if you don't complete every single checkbox. That's not the point. The point is to focus on specific practices to prioritize implementing in your courses, especially if you know you're going to be instructing with Canvas soon, i.e., if you're part of the spring pilot, you definitely have a little bit of urgency behind you. And so I want to point out those specific practices you should for sure make sure that you have in your course. And then the other things can be figured out later when you have a little more time. So I want to go ahead and head into how to get there, right? How do I get this magical checklist, Helen? So, we had published recently an update to our course evaluation checklist. It's why it says 3.0 in this blog post on the community. This is the most recent checklist. And as I've said, it is publicly available. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this into the chat. If you'd like to follow along and grab it for yourself, you can absolutely do so. By the way, our community did undergo a huge upgrade and change over the past 24 hours. So if you looked at it before, just realize it's going to look really different today. So in this blog post, which gives context about the checklist, right here is a way for you to make a copy. Now it will be a Google copy. If you don't prefer that, you can download a PDF version. So that's what I did here. I have it just ready to use as I go ahead and talk about the aspects of the checklist. By the way, this is not a document that we're super precious about. You could, because of the Creative Commons license, you could get a copy of this, modify it, rebrand it, simplify it, add things to it to make maybe a MTSU specific version, or maybe even an MTSU department specific version. You have free and full license to do that. You don't have to ask anybody. You just have to comply with the stipulations of the Creative Commons license is all. So the intent of the checklist here is to have you keep the student experience in mind as you start to think about building out courses for students. And as I've said, it's very detailed. So there is a kind of a star format to these practices. So each practice is indicated with a 1 star, a 2 star, or a 3 star. The 1 star rating indicates things that are considered to be essential, AKA, if you are one of those early adopters, if you're just raring to go with Canvas and you want to take care of this right now, right? You want to make sure that you grab the essentials and make sure they're part of your courses. And just work with the essential items because you're going to be very busy soon when you're working inside of Canvas. Now, there are some foundational items inside the essentials list. So if you wanted to drill down even further, maybe you just want to decide for yourself, I'm just going to focus on the foundational items. And then in a couple of months, when I feel more comfortable, I'll think about implementing the other one-star items and then just call it a day to bring you to the end of the spring semester. That's what I would recommend. I certainly don't recommend making sure you check off every single checkbox on this list right now. Now, in the future, when you feel a little more fancy, you've got some more energy, you've got some more time, you have more comfort with Canvas, maybe a year from now, you can consider adding in the two-star items. These are considered to be best practices in course design, particularly with online course design. And it would be awesome if you have the bandwidth to implement a couple of two-star items during that first semester with Canvas, but I'm not checking. I don't think anybody is checking. But it would be nice to get a little practice with them. And then later on down the road, you can take a look at our three-star practices. These are exemplary and they elevate that experience for folks. Now I'll just scroll down just a little bit here to show you, just so you understand the structure of the table a little more. So there are several tables as part of the document. Each criterion has its own section. You get a kind of a numerical indicator. You also have these pins. So I'll just focus on this one pin right here. This pin indicates alignment to a framework called Universal Design for Learning. And it comes in with the idea that offering a consistent, predictable, may I even say boring structure is the best course structure for learners because it supports them. And it tells you exactly how it aligns with Universal Design for Learning. So in other words, this particular criterion aligns with this particular best practice in this framework, just as more reinforcement that this is a good thing to do. All right. So while I talk through here, I'm going to use some of my courses for demo. I do want to say they're not 1,000% perfect. Perfection is not going to happen. But they, I think, are good indicators of examples, right? To show you how these look in action. And we'll go ahead and start with course information and expectations. These first three items here are foundational, so we have to make sure they're in our courses. Now, how you put them in your courses is up to you. You just want to make sure that it's in a place where students can find them. So one is the homepage. And we do recommend a homepage. You have some beautiful homepage templates available inside the Commons for you to import and use in your courses. The homepage is that visual representation of the course, where you offer that course description and understanding about what the course is about. You might also choose to include some easy navigation items, and luckily built into the homepage that you get in the Commons, you have some areas that students can click to get to those spaces. So that's checked off. We're also offering some clear instructions. So we're not just putting in the buttons and then walking away. We're trying to explain, use the links below to access course content. And that's item 1.1. If you've got a homepage, if you've got information on it, then you're good to go and you can kind of mentally check that off for yourself. 1.2 is course navigation. Your course navigation menu lives right here. We just want to make sure that you're not having every single area open to students. Falling down rabbit holes is dangerous for students. It's dangerous for adults. So what I have here is a course navigation that is restrained. Only these areas are showing to students. The others are hidden, A, because they're just for us, but B, it prevents them from getting into places where they shouldn't be. So if you're looking at your course and thinking, well, everything's open, you can go to your settings, and then in navigation here, the top items are visible. So, for example, like collaborations, if I don't want this, I can take this and drag it down to the bottom. And then when I save it, it hides the collaborations area. So now they have just syllabus, announcements, modules, and grades. And I think that's a good place to start. That's really all they need. I need to know what's in the syllabus. I need the course announcements. I need my work, and I need to know how I'm doing in the class. So you just want to make sure that you kind of restrain your navigation. And later on, if you want to use these other areas like collaborations, you can always change that. I can take that and drag it up to the top menu to make that visible and then save it. And that's 1.2. 1.3 talks about having a list somewhere of what's termed here course standards. You might title these something different, like these are the learning objectives for the course. A list like that should be made accessible to students. You could make it on the homepage. You could put those learning objectives there.
Helen, could you do me a favor real quick? I'm sorry, back on the navigation on the homepage,
Yep.
um, that link that's down there that says start here, can you click on that and show them where it goes?
Let me click on the homepage, right?
Hmm.
Start here.
Yes.
So what I did was I made a link going to the initial homepage, rather welcome module. So let me show you how to do that real quick. So I'm in the back end of the homepage here. When I click on that star icon, I have the ability to add a link to it. So let me remove the link so you can see how it looks. So let's say I want to make that connection. So with that image selected, I go to the chain link here. And I want this to go to that first module because that's where all the introduction stuff is. So I'll go to course link. And then in modules, I'm going to find the welcome module, and that makes the connection. You can also, yeah, add the syllabus to the module too. That would work. And then I hit save. All
Yeah,
right.
so I just wanted to show that exactly where that went. So basically it's just like the getting started module that you see in most of your courses in D2L. Over the years, we've strongly encouraged to have that getting started module. Um, Also, we as designers and Karen and Lauren and everyone we are working on buttons that you can interchange in there also. So if you'd like to add a different button or something, it would be possible to do.
Speaking of the syllabus, great call out there, Lauren. That's one part of the welcome module as well. You could also put it inside your syllabus area. I did kind of copy and paste from a sample syllabus we have, but you could also put your learning objectives here somewhere. Or it could also be part of your syllabus that's in a PDF format, in which case you could just upload the syllabus here. So if you have that PDF or that Word document, you can use this symbol right here in the rich content editor to upload it from your hard drive. You just kind of search for it. And then you would click on submit. So that can also fulfill 1.3 because your syllabus might have your learning objectives already embedded inside of it. You just have to make sure that they know where to find it if they're looking for it. The rest of the items here under this table, I'll just kind of quickly draw your attention to the star level. Most of them are also 1 star, and a lot of them are super common sense. Your syllabus probably already has all these things. Your syllabus should have class expectations, of course. You have your contact information available. You have some kind of pacing guide, like chapter 1 is covered in week 1, chapter 2 is covered in week 2. And then right here, 1.7 talks about the course card being a representation of the subject. Here's what I mean by the course card. It's the picture that lives behind the color overlay on the card itself. Now, the point is to make it appropriate to the course. So, for example, for a math class, maybe there should be some math symbols here. So if you want to switch out the course card to make sure and make it easy for students to find, you can go inside the course here, go to settings, and here's that picture. You can remove it, and then you can upload it to something that's more aligned to your course content. So you just have to kind of search for it. I admit I don't have a math one. And then make that be your course card image instead, and then just hit update course details. One point eight, this is also probably in your syllabus somewhere, but contain information about institutional resources like the library, counseling services, a link to your institution's website. If it's not already in your syllabus, you could maybe add those as links to your introduction module. That would work too. So if you're thinking, well, maybe I'll make it as a link to modules, which is fine. You can go to your welcome module, and in the plus button here, you have an option to add external links. That's external URL. So here I can place the URL going to the library and then give that a title, MTSU library site, and then click on add item. And then that would make that link live inside the welcome module. And it can be clicked. So that's 1.8. So if you think you've got already all that in hand, you are well on your way. Now, this is a best practice situation here, having your learning objectives broken down into student-friendly language. And then finally, as a exemplary practice, give opportunities for course feedback. And I don't mean here informal feedback, although that can also work, or that end of course survey that you're used to giving to students. I mean feedback that's more frequent, that you can even create inside of Canvas. Coming really soon, I mean next week, is the new quiz survey mode. That would allow you to create a quiz with a dedicated survey mode so you can use that survey to ask students, among other things, how is this course structure working for you? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And you can have them, go ahead and give you that informal feedback through Canvas if they'd rather not just come talk to you personally. And then the idea here is to use that feedback to improve future editions of the course, future assignments, future discussions, things like that. So all of that is within the course information area. Let's go ahead and take a look at the structure of a course. We've got 4 must-do items, and one of them is also foundational. This is a good one. Make sure all your links work. That's what 2.1 says. Now, websites go up and down every day of the week. The thing is that they don't tell you when the links will be broken. So you might want a way to check within your course to see if links are broken. And you can do that. When you go to the settings area of your course, you'll have right here a link called Validate Links in Content. And this is an automated way for you to check to make sure that links to websites, links to URLs do actually go somewhere. Sometimes when you do like course imports, this has happened to me a bunch of times, images that I thought were in the old course were not in the course. So when I did the transfer, of course, all the links looked broken because the images weren't actually there. So we'll have to give this a minute because there's actually a lot of content here. But when this finishes rendering. You'll see a little report. It will tell you the number of broken links. It will tell you which items have broken links, and then the problem, and then kind of give you this little push. Hey, you may want to go ahead and fix that. So here we go. Ooh, 23 broken links. So here's just one example, right? Canvas is telling me, oh, you got a broken link in this discussion. So it's telling me there's non-existent content referenced in this resource. So I have to go to this discussion. Or I can just click and see if this actually goes somewhere. See? Couldn't even find it. So at this point, you can go in and kind of click on these resources and see if they're actually there. If they're actually there, you can go into the edit area, remove the broken link, and then add in a new one. So that is 2.1. These other 3 items are also essential. I think these all actually also go together too. Chunk your content into modules. Use modules is basically what that's saying. And if possible, use pages to present content instead of linking to files. So let me show you what I mean by chunking into pages. Let me refresh here. First off, if you're using modules, you're doing great. But when building out your content, if possible, sometimes it's not possible, break up your content into separate pages. This is what I mean by breaking up content. Because here's that first page, 4 ways to represent a function. You can have content on here, but you also know that people hate scrolling. So if I were to put all the content in 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, all on one page, that's a really long page. And putting it in pages has the advantage of making sure that your page will be responsive inside the mobile app, which we'll talk about a little bit later this afternoon. Now, I'm not hating on anybody who has to do a PDF because they just don't have time. I get it, I do. Or they just put links to, say, a YouTube channel. I get that, I do. Just know that the experience may be a little different for students on mobile versus students that are using a web browser. And that's not a bad thing, just know that it is different. But using pages to present your content minimizes those differences between groups of students. So use pages whenever possible. Definitely use modules to chunk your course. Format your content consistently. So here's what this means. Again, like no hate if you have done this in the past. Formatting your items consistently means having a very predictable, very consistent, dare I say boring setup to things like assignment directions, discussion directions, quiz directions. So that students always know like they're accessing your course in April for your long course. They know what to expect because they're always going to see 3 sections in their assignment directions. So here's one that you can feel free to steal, right? Have an assignment overview section. This is where the directions go. Have a guidelines section. This is where you outline those bits about student conduct. Use appropriate tone in your discussion posts. You can only use PDF, right? You can't use Word. You have to attribute your sources using APA format. All of that might go in a guidelines area. And then under technical support, you can steal this if you want. Need help using Canvas assignments, review this page. Or you could even put, hey, students, go to your help area and see if you can contact the help desk regarding whatever issue you think you're having in Canvas. The point is that they see these headers every time, so they know what to expect. And then finally, course files. Just if you're using files, which I'm sure most of you are, make sure that the links work. So in the case of my, oh, I'm sorry, it's in the welcome module. In the case of my syllabus here, click the link yourself and make sure that it works. Also make sure that your embedded items here do follow accessibility guidelines. So those are all essential. You got to make sure to take care of those for sure. The rest of these, next four anyway, are best practices. Have a get to know you discussion. Have a thoughtful naming convention. Here's an example of that. When I was starting out using Canvas, I hit on this idea to number every single module item. So if this is part of my first module of the course, all of these items started with a 1. And this item is the third in that module. So I called it 1.3. And I made sure to follow that same format. So when we got to module 7, they would see items like 7.1, 7.2, 7.3. So they knew it was part of module 7. That's what I mean by some kind of a naming convention that you follow for your module items. Now, if you want to implement that, let's say I want to modify this. Once you have your item inside the module, you can select the 3 dots here, go to edit, and then right here is where you can type in your number convention. And then you just stay consistent with it throughout your module building in the course. Modules begin with some kind of introduction page. So I have one right here. This is an overview and to-do kind of page. And it doesn't have to look this cute, by the way. It doesn't. It just has to be neat. So I have here an overview. This is what you're learning. Here's a way to get the learning objectives point from the first table. List your learning objectives here for the module. And then you could even consider having a to-do list. Like these are the things you have to do. Read this, complete this, complete this. Honestly, like if you're getting in just the overview and the module objectives and that's it, you're still doing really good because you're letting students know this is what you're about to learn. So it kind of primes their brain for what's going to follow. All right. And then having text headers and indents. Here's what I mean by a text header. This lesson section is a text header. Text headers let you make basically sections out of sections. So inside a module, you can have sections, an intro section, a course content section, a assignments section, a looking ahead section. This is all in service of making a predictable module structure. And I also have indents too. So these 4 pages are really part of this one lesson. So the indent here is telling students, like these are all related. If they didn't get it, that the numbering system is also important. And then finally here.
Helen, if you don't mind, real quick, can you go back to that screen one more time? I just want to point something out to the faculty. All right, so notice here that you have the indentions and all that. In Canvas, there is not a submodule feature.
Yep.
Okay, so the indentation does help. Also, notice that below the 1.7 right there in the center of the screen, you have that blank space. You can add a space in between things within one module by creating a text header and just don't put anything in for it. It becomes blank and it ends up at the bottom of that module. And you can grab those 8 dots, the vertical dots on the left-hand side, and pull that space up to separate the things within that single module.
Yeah, you sure could.
I just wanted to point that out to everybody.
And then while we're at it, in case anybody's not sure about this, what are they talking about? Uh, when you're building a module, you have a plus button to add items. Text headers are here. So the blank text header Jimmy was talking about is it's actually really simple. You get to text header, don't type anything, and then click add item. So at the bottom of the module, you now have this new blank space. And then you can use that blank space to add more separation. So I'll put it here. So in between assignments and then the problem set. And I'm going to show you in student view just how it looks. It actually looks really nice. So right here, that was a blank text header. See that visual separation? It offers a break. Here's that text header. I just added this one.
Also, I want you guys to notice that before she went to the preview area or viewing as a student, she published that.
Yep.
So in Canvas, everything must be published. So if you see the green check marks on the right-hand side, if you ever see a line or a circle with a line through it, that means it's not been published. So most things that you create or that you add are going to have to be published. Now you can do that by the entire module at the top, just by publishing the module, it publishes everything. But I just want to point that out. A lot of the things that we're going to see when we go live with this, whether you be an early adopter or in the summer or in the fall, that if you have a student that says, I can't see this, that needs to be the first thing that you check.
Yeah.
Because you can still set your dates for everything however you want, but if it's not published, the students won't be able to see it.
Yeah. And that happened to me, like even as a pretty savvy Canvas user, I forget sometimes. 99% of the time, I forgot to publish the thing. So that's how you add those text headers. So that's how you add the blank header. If you did want to add a section title like introduction, you just type it in and then hit add item. And then to indent something like this Unit 1 module page, you have a 3 dots here where you can increase the indent. You can also decrease. And then some exemplary things. Module completion requirements and prerequisites to offer structure. If you attended our module session, you might have. You might have heard me talk about items that check off for students. For example, this page here, which is my biographical page, has an additional command to students. Students, you have to view this. Students, you have to view this. And these become little checkoff items for the student that are checked off when they're done by the student. You also see here a little notice, student has to complete all items. And that makes it so that students know, well, above all, I gotta make sure that I do the items that are marked with a requirement. So in the end, for student, it looks a little bit something like this. Not this module, but this one. Our test student here hasn't done anything, so that's why there's a circle here. But as soon as they view this, so here is the student viewing it, they can then go back and they should have a little check mark here. And although I don't have possibilities for check marks all the way down, you could institute commands, requirements all the way down. So to do that, you'd go to the module once you're set up, go to edit, and then you want to focus on requirements. Choose complete all if you want the students to do every single thing you indicate. And then here is where you can add your requirement. So just go ahead and add one for this discussion board. See right there, now I have a requirement that they have to add something to the board. And then you have, there's some fun wrinkles in Canvas. That's what this last point here talks about. There is a way to do basically automated differentiation within a module, and it's called mastery paths. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But it does require like a lot of comfort with Canvas, and I don't think we have time actually to go into it. But rest assured, from somebody that used it all the time, it's a wonderful way to reach students where they are. So if students are coming into your class with various levels of experience about a topic, you can administer a pretest and then give assignments to students based upon the results of the pretest. That's what Mastery Paths is. All right, we're going to go a little bit quicker here because at this point, a lot of these points are pretty self-explanatory. Under course content, absolutely make sure you follow copyright. Also, absolutely make sure your content builds logically, which I'm positive you already do this. You start with foundational topics, and then you go on to the harder ones. Check, done. The rest of these one-star items here, I think, do vary depending on the content area. Things like offering clarification on terms, offering vocabulary lists. Again, that might not be helpful for you. Making sure content is appropriate. I'm sure they're appropriate. Making sure that you're including language that is inclusive. Again, if that suits your content. And then heading on into those best practices, personalized learning, and multiple methods of content delivery. Here's an easy way to get into personalized learning. And I say that as someone who taught chemistry, and I don't think my field is necessarily known for offering personalized learning opportunities, but here's how I started. So inside a regular assignment, and only if the assignment works for this, right? Not all assignments will suit this strategy, okay? But here's an easy way to start. If you have a project in your course, for instance, and it's fine with you that they do a video, then you can check off media recording so they can upload a video of themselves talking. Or you could give them an option, again, if appropriate, to submit a written paper. That's one way you can offer some personalized learning because then you're giving the student the choice to do one or the other. That's how I started with that.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Is this media recordings? I teach speech. Does this mean they could actually put their speech video into this place, or do they still have to put it into YouTube and only put the link?
Oh, no. They can record this inside Canvas.
And it'll handle a 7-minute video?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they would no longer need to upload to YouTube. They would upload directly into Canvas. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, ma'am, 100%. And I had students do this, and I'll tell you, they loved it, or they told me they loved it. But they don't need any special software to do so as well. Okay.
Can I ask one, sorry, not to jump in, but Jerry, you asked about that. What type of speech? Is it just them speaking, or do they have materials? And does it include having the screen share as well if they have to do something like that? Or is it just their recording from this perspective?
I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but
sorry, the part of it was for Helen.
Okay, but I'm saying,
yeah,
they have to do a speech, and some of them actually do have a PowerPoint showing on a big, large TV screen next to them as they speak. But they have to, when they give their speech, they have to pan an audience of 5. Okay. Somebody in the audience pans the audience of 5, and then they video the speaker and their visual aid, whatever that is. And currently, D2L cannot handle those videos. And so they have to upload it to the YouTube. And the only thing they put into D2L in the discussion board is the link to the YouTube. But it sounds like they will no longer have to do that. They can actually upload the video It has to be the last one's 7 minutes. The first one's only 3 to 4. But D2L could not handle those speeches. You could only put in the link.
Right, right. I just want to make sure because there's media recordings and file uploads.
Right.
So Helen, which would that be more of if they are creating an MP4, for example, would they just upload it?
They can upload the file directly
Okay.
to SpeedGrader. Yes, that would work, Dr. Burnett, like right here. If you checked off this other box, they could record it from inside of Canvas, but I think for your assignment, they might find it easier to do a file upload. Just because if you're having them show a PowerPoint and then pan to the audience, they're probably recording from, say, a phone, right? Or a tablet, something like
That's
that.
correct.
Yeah. So then they can get that file from their phone and then upload it as a file here.
Okay, so they're going to file upload, not media recording.
Right, yeah, I would think so because media recordings means generally they're using the camera of their device. So if you chose media recordings for that assignment, they have to pick up their laptop and kind of do this, to pan. And I don't think they'll thank you for that, honestly. So I think file uploads would work. You could also give them the option to insert a link from YouTube. If they must use YouTube, they still could use YouTube.
Well, half of them don't want to use YouTube because they don't.
Never mind.
Well, besides the fact YouTube automatically makes their videos private unless they choose to make it public and share the link. And so I get a bunch of links that I can't view. And
Right.
sounds like this will be a good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
And when you do, like, I have 500 speeches in one semester, this will be helpful.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so I think that's a really good use case for having like multiple options available to students. So if the project suits it, you can have them choose their own preferred way of demonstrating their understanding. And then multiple methods of content delivery. This, I think, makes perfect sense. For example, I admit, though, I don't have a good example of that. But let's say inside of an assignment directions, you can have written instructions, but you also have the rich content editor. So you could include, along with text, a video of yourself speaking the directions or explaining the directions. So you can have your written work here, and then your video of your explanation can also be here. This point also covers things like, and I think everybody here does this, having written text for content, also having videos as resources, right? Also using websites, trusted websites as resources, journal articles. The point is to have lots of different ways in which students can have access to content, which you probably do already. All right. The next points here are exemplary. So when you're ready for them, have a list of permissions for content that is not originally yours. You can put them inside of course files, just as a page or a document that you have there just in case somebody asks, well, where did you get these resources? And then having perhaps an additional vocabulary list to suit your learners, especially if you've got very complex content. Having multiple supports for readings. While we're on the topic of multiple supports, let me show you that you have free inside your Canvas a way for students to access your rich content editor content. And it allows for students to kind of cut through the noise of the page, so to speak, focus a little more on content because they can modify the text size, change the appearance. They can even have the content read to them. I won't click it because it will read it out to all of us. And they can even potentially translate the page. Now, this functionality is only available in certain areas of Canvas, just in pages and assignments. Don't worry, it's not available in quizzes. All right. Learner interaction. Again, I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, well, I do all this stuff already. Yes, of course you do. A lot of these are just best practices for an instruction, period. Clear, detailed instructions. That's all this means. I do like here, there's a little phrase, instructions are platform neutral. If you're going to attend the rest of our afternoon, which you're welcome to, you'll see on the mobile app that certain areas are in different places, and students will be using mobile and also probably their laptops. So making sure that you're not saying things like, click in the top right corner of the page, because it might not be in the top right corner of the page if they're accessing on mobile. And then 4.2, give instructions on how to submit work. That's it. So we're gonna get, there's actually a pretty good example of this here. So we'll take this problem set, right? This particular problem set is just written work, but you have to tell them this is written. Also make sure if this is only intended to be like written items that students are submitting, in that case, don't talk about video in the instructions. Make sure the instructions suit the modality that you're having students submit to. And then the rest of these one-star items, again, I think make total sense, and they're things you do already. Making sure your submission requirements are appropriate for teaching methods. So let's say you're one of our great MTSU online only folks. You're not meeting students in person. So you're most likely choosing, for example, assignments that are online submissions only, not no submission assignments. Make sure, again, your directions match the submission type. So Dr. Burnett, let's take your speech assignment where they have to submit a video. Tell them, I'm only accepting a video. I am not accepting any other format other than MP4. And then include within your course opportunities for folks to interact with each other, interact with you, and interact with content. Now, how you put these in place, I think is going to depend on your style and then your department and your content area. So learner to learner, a great way to do that is a discussion board. This is the instructor side, but students will also see a way to add a reply right here. And if you have everybody in the course working on the same discussion board, they'll be able to see the replies of others. That's an easy way to make sure that students are interacting with each other in a productive way. And that's the way I'd recommend if you're just starting out. As far as learner to instructor interaction is concerned, I don't necessarily mean in person, but it could. But inside of Canvas, this generally means two things. No, yeah, two things. Three things. Using announcements. And there's Scott's announcement from the other day. An announcement is a one-to-many form of communication. So I can go ahead and say, hey, move the quiz to next Tuesday, put the body of the message here, and then send that out to students so they get your message right away. Another way is through the Canvas inbox. You can send messages from here or inside the gradebook too. Or there's this way, and that's grades. letting students know about their grades and giving them that feedback is part of learner and instructor interaction. So here is an assignment. It's got some submissions on it. There's 3 left that I have to grade. So when I go into SpeedGrader, I have an opportunity to communicate with this learner about what they're doing right and what they need to work on. Now, this is how it looks with a file upload, something written, right? So let's take Dr. Burnett, right? Like her videos, you'll see the playable video window in the corner, and then you can play the video from inside of SpeedGrader. If you have written work submitted to you like this, you can add annotations. I'll just do one. And then you can add comments. And they'll be able to see your comments. You also have here a way to enter in the grade, and you can type in the box. Or if you have attached a rubric, you can use the rubric to indicate where you think that student's at. And if you use the commenting box, you can explain why you gave them this rating of exceeds or meets expectations. You also have here additional ways to add communication, as I've done already for this student many times. You see some playable windows, right? Because you can create video and audio comments. You can also write comments. Here is where you can upload or create a video file. See my face right there? So I can record my comments here, or I can even have screen capture on so that the work can be showing in the video. Right? Hi there, Ben. Here's me grading your assignment. And then when the grades and comments are released to students, they'll be able to play this and get that feedback. So that's the primary way, I think, in which you can make sure you have that learner and instructor interaction in hand. And again, you're all experienced with an LMS. If you do this already, then you already have this checked off, right? All right. A best practice, learner and self interaction. You can have students say complete reflections, journal entries. You can create assignments that are not purely for the purpose of gathering grades. You can ask students to say, hey, reflect on your progress in this course and let me know how you're going to improve for next time. And then for exemplary items, include videos, but specifically videos to help model and clarify expectations. It's like I was explaining earlier, you can have your assignment directions written and then have a video or audio clip to explain the directions more fully. That would work too. And then if suitable, if possible, I know this is not always possible, if you have any sample assignments submitted from students in the past, or maybe a sample assignment that you've generated just to show students how an assignment should look, and then make that available to students. So when they look at the example, they realize, oh, that's what she meant by 200 words. All right, under assessments. Again, you've done these before, I'm sure. Making sure your learning activities are directly tied to your learning objectives. Include formative and summative assessments. This one I think is an important one. This is all basically saying don't just use one form of assessment. I was guilty of this. Like I would feel sometimes like I was killing my students with individual assignments. Include a variety of activities. So include discussion boards, individual assignments, of course, quizzes, of course. And then when you're more familiar, take a look at our group options. You can have students complete group assignments, discuss a topic in a small group. You can even have them do an advanced type of assignment called peer review. So I'm going to pick on Karen here because she's at the top of my Zoom screen. If Karen and I are both students in a course, our instructor can make it. So I see Karen's work and she sees my work so that we can give each other feedback on the work. And then tying this, kind of pinning this down even further, include lots of formative assessments, and then of course have summative assessments. And use speed grader, that's 5.6. Now the rest of these are best practices, and this is exemplary. Have clear grading expectations. This is really talking about rubrics. So let's walk through rubrics here real quick. I do mean quick. This is not a rubric grading training. You can create rubrics here. You can build your rubric with criteria. These are things you're looking for from students. So I'm going to pretend this is for a speech project. Expression. I would add a description of what that means for me as far as a student who has mastered this criterion. And then I would indicate some clear descriptions of what each of these levels look like. I would then save the criterion and then keep on building up my rubric. So by the time I have my rubric all figured out, I have something like this. Okay, it's simple, but it'll do. I have criteria here with ratings levels. And then I can use it in an assignment, a discussion, or even a quiz to assess students. So that's what that point is about. Use rubrics. Make sure that your assignments have weights. Make sure that the weights are appropriate. I think this is also common sense. Your large projects have a large number of points. Your small point assignments are those informal checks for understanding that for you don't have as much importance. And then down the road, if that is appropriate for your use case, you can connect your rubrics to learning competencies called outcomes. But that's going to require some additional implementation before we are ready for 5.9. So no need to worry about this right now. Just know that this might be coming. I'll go ahead and stop here because I feel like I've been talking for a long time and see if there's questions I've missed.
Helen, there was one that I just thought you might want to answer from Scott McDaniel about mastery paths.
Mastery paths. Oh, I think it was nested and then I lost track of it. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, with the mastery paths, do they have to advance by clicking on the next button, or can I add a button to the page? If they access the page itself, will that count as accessing the page? Okay, so let me see if I can explain this well. Let's say I am part of your course, Scott. I don't know anything. I know nothing. And I tank that pretest because I don't know anything. That score that's registered in the gradebook will cause an automated trigger to fire. And that automatically assigns me to your beginner level assignments present in that module. I only have access to those assignments is my point, right? Karen, who came into your course knowing everything, is going to get a different assignment that's geared more towards her current level of understanding because she got 100% on your initial pretest. She gets access to different items that are suited towards her level. So the student, right, both Karen and I would work through your module, but only certain things would be visible to me that are not visible to Karen. So yes, I would still click on next, but in my case, my next is not Karen's next. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of. In other words, you don't have to add a button. And I think we answered the questions about multiple types of submissions. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, you just you found it a lot quicker than I did. Okay. All right. External resources. Again, I feel like these are very common sense. Pick reliable websites. Make sure your websites are always available so they're not pay to play, which I'm sure they already are. You have LTIs, like you've purchased them, you've made sure students have access. So that is most likely covered for most folks. Make sure that external sites are accessible. And if they are truly educational, which I'm sure they are, they probably already do meet those standards. If you're using external tools, Khan Academy is a great example. Any LTI really. Make sure it's relevant to your course and supports your course. It's not there just to be entertaining. And then making sure your links to external content are relevant and appropriate. I do like right here this mention of advertising. And I'll bring up YouTube here because this has come up recently, like here at Instructor. You can embed a YouTube video for students to watch in Canvas. You can. However, know that if you're embedding directly from YouTube, ads will most likely play even if they're inside of Canvas. And that's because they're accessing it through a link that comes from YouTube. So consider that the other websites you're using might have distractions that might veer students off course. Now, as for the accessibility points here, which are all foundational.
Can you say that warning about YouTube videos one more time?
Yeah. Actually, I will do this. I'll just show you this on my home page just so that you know what I'm talking about here. So right here, you see the YouTube symbol, right? That does allow you to embed a YouTube video. So I'll click on that symbol here. I can search for a video. I can embed it, right? So the window appears. And I'm not going to play it because it's going to come out really blaring and loud. But because this is coming from YouTube, it is likely the YouTube ads will play during the video. That's what I'm trying to say. And the ads are distracting. Now, I know there are times when you have to link from YouTube. Like, I'm not bashing you if you need to do that. I just want you just to be aware that there might be ads playing. That's all. Did that help? Oh, Dr. Burnett, I think you're muted, but I think you might be saying, how can you remove the ads?
What I'm saying is, when they go to watch TED Talks,
Right.
they currently don't see ads. How do I add these? How would they do a TED Talk with no ad? If putting the link in right from this YouTube icon makes it pull the ads with it, how do you add it without the ads being visible?
It's dependent on the video. So if the video itself has ads on it, if we embed them like this directly from YouTube or anywhere. So if you had a video, it's like if the TED Talk you have right now does not have video or does not have ads, then that will be fine. But if, say, there's another video that does have ads, there's not a way that we can go around that.
Got it. Most of the TED Talks have no ads.
Good. All right. So regarding accessibility requirements, all of which have a 1 star, you have to take care of these. I'll just say, first of all, we are having a accessibility specific session on Friday where I will dig into these in exquisite detail. This is not the session for a deep dive, but I'll just kind of mention these quickly and then move on. Many of these, again, I'm sure are items that you already have or that you're used to handling as an instructor. This first item here is foundational. You got to do it. Use some kind of software to check and correct for accessibility. And we do have a built-in tool for that called the accessibility checker. And I'll just point out where it is. I'll do a more kind of a fuller discussion of it later. It's right here. And right now it's not lit up. It has not detected any issues. If there was an issue on that page, there would be a number in the corner, which would tell me the number of issues that have been found. And the checker will walk you through each error, explain the error, and then prompt you to fix it. So there is such a tool built inside of Canvas for that. And so all we're saying is to make sure to use the checker every time you build something. Have an accommodation statement. You might already have an accommodation statement in your syllabus, in which case you've already done this. Check done. You could also put your accommodation statement in multiple places. You could put it in the course syllabus, here. You could also put it as a link in a module. You could just straight up put the accommodation statement on the homepage. You just want to make sure that you have a statement ready at hand. When you're building out content, again, super quick coverage here. Please don't make it rainbow and full of a huge variety of colors. Color is good. I'm not saying color is bad. Color is good, but realize that not everybody can perceive all the colors. That's all that is saying. So make sure, for example, that you have sufficient color contrast. Use images, of course, but ensure that you're using text descriptions that are read out to students using screen readers. Using heading styles to create section titles, because those section titles are read out to students with screen readers to alert them there's a section coming. Otherwise, a student that has full sight can already see that you have sections, but students using a screen reader won't necessarily know that. So use styles. And just so that you know, by styles, I mean these. Paragraph is regular text, but heading 2, heading 3, heading 4 are what I mean by heading styles. More on that on Friday. Be careful with hyperlinks. I've seen this a lot. When you insert hyperlinks like canvaslms.com, a student using a screen reader, if you put this link in Canvas as is, every letter is going to be read out to them. HTTPS://, right? In the meantime, another student has moved on. So we're suggesting that you create text that is contextual, like Canvas website would be better text than canvaslms.com. Making sure that your audio materials have a transcript, make sure that videos have captions. And then this is a 2-star. Honestly, I don't think it applies to everybody. Tables. I have been guilty of this. Please don't feel bad if you feel like I'm calling you out, like I'm calling me out, okay? A lot of folks will want to use a table to organize pictures because it makes the pictures line up, so it looks really nice. I don't blame you. But the issue is that the alt text in the images cannot be accessed if they're in a table. Now, having said that, right, if you need to have data in your tables, which is the best way of using tables, to make sure that you have them set up in a certain way so that the screen reader can access the data properly. We'll go over that set of steps on Friday. We're almost there. Instructor supports. This one I think is obvious. Answer keys. Now, I am not saying put your answer keys in the course unless you want to do that, but making sure that you have access to answer keys so that you can use them for grading. Where this really comes into play is if you are maybe co-teaching with someone else, if you have multiple instructors inside the course, like if it's you and then a bunch of TAs. Maybe your TAs would welcome, for example, we'll pretend here. You could create a module. We'll have to let this save first. You could create a module called TA support. So our module is now at the bottom of the page here. And you can upload your answer keys here because you have a plus button. So you can upload those files. I'll just pretend this is one of them. And you just have to make sure that they're unpublished. If they're unpublished, students can't see. So they won't see the answer keys. But your TAs will. So your TAs could go find the answer key in an unpublished module that's made just for them. Specific information included unpublished for instructors to help teach. Again, that might help support TAs. Like, for example, if your TAs are running tutorial sections for you and you want them to have like basically a facilitator guide for each of those tutorials, you could also put them in this module. So your TA support module can have answer keys, facilitator guides to each of the tutorials, anything here to help your TAs do their job. You just want to make sure again that it's not published. And then finally, synchronous session supports. So again, I think this actually talks about the ongoing tutorial aspect. Include materials to help support TAs to run their sections, especially for courses that have blended or synchronous components. So this is all about supporting anybody who is helping to instruct in your course, which could be TAs, probably TAs for most of you, or other staff that are there to support students that might be part of your courses. Mobile apps, and this is the last section. We're going to have a deep dive into mobile apps in about 15 minutes. So just going to skim over this real fast. I know. You came into this business because you wanted to have students have full access to the wonderful world of content area here. You do also have to consider, though, especially in this day and age, right? Students are going to be on their phones to access Canvas. I have seen this firsthand. My students would tell me that they were on the Canvas mobile app more than on their laptops. And I saw that, so I knew that was true. Which means you need to think about how your course looks on mobile. And let me just assure you, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, that's even more that I have to think about. I promise, if you're doing all the one-star things, your course will look great on mobile. I can practically guarantee that. If you're doing all those one-star items, you've got the mobile app stuff covered. But you will want to think about knowing what your course looks like in the mobile app. I'll go over that when we get to that session, so that you can see your course on mobile, so you understand what students are talking about when they talk about your course. Consider scrolling, on your smaller devices like your phone. If you're accessing a long Canvas page, that's a lot of scrolling. So consider breaking up your content into separate pages, if possible. Letting students know if there's an unsupported file type on the app, because they might not have access to your resources. So if you're talking about, oh, go on to Quizlet and access this Quizlet. If that's not supported by the student's device, they won't have access to it. So you just have to let them know, hey, this is Quizlet. Just wanted to give you a heads up that it's on Quizlet. If you can't access Quizlet, here's a PowerPoint with all the terms, something like that. And then finally, and then we are done. This exemplary practice, as you're going to see in a few minutes, students have access to additional tools on the app that they don't have on the web. For example, they can annotate a PDF, even your syllabus, they can annotate your syllabus. And so your assessment design might take that into account. For example, I can set up a regular assignment that says, here is the assignment accessible on this PDF that I attached here for you. If you're doing this work on mobile, you can go to that file, you can annotate it and upload it as your assignment. So what that does is it lets students know, if I'm on a mobile device, I can submit this assignment in a slightly different way. Now, again, this is a 3-star. If you're not comfortable with that at this point, you don't have to do it. But you will see that students have a lot of access to some pretty cool things on the app. And maybe for a use case in the future, it would be best for them to be supported in that way. That's a lot. It's a lot of things to think about. It is. Take all this in stride. Just worry about the 1-star things for now. Make sure you have those down. And then in the future, you think about the 2 stars. And then in the future, you think about the 3 stars. That's it. Make sure you have your 1-star things down for sure in the short term. And friends, that's course design considerations.